The game's made, the fans await. A critic warns of a deadly fate. Give up your franchise, separate. Bide your time, lie in wait. Shitty Sonic games, shitty Sonic games. They made a vow, the next one won't suck balls. The games never grow, they're always shite. This one's about a freedom fight. They seek a serious, darker tone. Is it time if they only knew how many dicks Sonic 06 blew? Shitty Sonic games, shitty Sonic games. I long to play better, but I have to wait. I have too much bullshit on my plate. They made a vow, the next one won't felt go. Shitty Sonic games. Given what I've said on previous episodes about Sonic and the Sonic franchise, you might be very surprised that I'm more or less indifferent towards Sonic. I have bought one or two of the games, but not since I was around 10 years old have I liked or been into the Sonic franchise. To me, it was a phase after buying Sonic Heroes, which ended when the game started to get really shit again. Anyway, Sonic Forces got my attention a few months ago, and I was fortunate enough to get it at a sale price. I'll confess that my interest in doing this episode sooner rather than later stemmed from the fact that there is a character costume based on Persona 5, which is actually one of my favourite games of last year. I can't help but find this just a little bit confusing though. Without spoiling too much about the game, it does have some really heavy themes in it, and I'm not just talking about its minimalistic combat violence. It gets its 18 rating for a specific reason. I mean, it has story beats like child sexual exploitation and suicide in it, and I think the word fuck is said a dozen or so times throughout the story as well. So let's tie it in with a kiddies game. This is like the next Mario having a manhunt costume. Anyway, this game was, it met some expectations, but not many. I've actually had to give this one a lot of thought as to how I'll be able to explain everything that I think is wrong with Sonic Forces, as it's actually quite difficult. Originally my plan was to break it down into sections, but the problem is some aspects of this game are intertwined with each other. This makes it very difficult to talk about these issues separately. Anyway, I've done my best to methodically space it out and try to get every issue that I have with this game into the script. So, let's begin. Okay, so I'm going to be comparing this game's story a number of times to another game series that I played recently, the South Park games of the last few years. Both games have a similar setup of a created player character being inserted into an established world with established characters. I'm going to be explaining how South Park does this right and how Sonic Forces completely fucks this up as I go through the review. So this story's central premise is that Dr. Eggman wants to take over the world. Again. Because why the fuck not? Sonic turns up to stop him only to find himself overwhelmed by a new enemy called Infinite. That's, really his name. That's what we're sticking with. Okay, fine. Infinite it is. So Infinite is the new reality bending guy, who is voiced by Liam O'Brien, who is the voice of Reverse Flash in Injustice 2. Honestly, I think this is quite fitting. Why the fuck hasn't Sonic crossed over with the Flash, or fought Reverse Flash? Anyway, Reverse Flash, which I'm gonna call him that from now on as it's not as stupid as Infinite. And when Reverse Flash is the lesser of two stupids, you know you've completely fucked up. Anyway, Reverse Flash kicks Sonic's blue spiky arse and imprisons him, and now there's nobody else on this entire planet who can do what Sonic can do, and Eggman conquers the planet over the course of the next 6 months. This game has already fallen flat on its face at the first hurdle, hasn't it? Why couldn't Shadow, Silver, Knuckles, or any of Sonic's retarded friends save the world? Why couldn't the millions of Anthro animals form an army to defeat Eggman? Don't they have a police force or a military of some kind? Why is it all left on Sonic's shoulders? Why can't anyone but Sonic form a militia in this stupid fucking game? What happens if two sets of Anthros decide that they want to have a war over something stupid? No, really, I'm asking these questions because none of them are answered, and it just leaves these massive questions hanging in the balance. Even if they are completely useless, and Sonic has to use his super speed to feed and wipe their asses like a mass game of Sims, let's pretend this is the case. Shadow the Hedgehog has his own tie-in game. It's called Shadow the Hedgehog. Knuckles had his own campaigns in Sonic Rivals. Silver had his own spin-off and campaigns in Sonic Rivals. Sonic Heroes proves that any of these characters can save the world. But no. I don't know why. Maybe Sonic paid them to defeat the enemy, and without him, they just weren't willing to defend it for free. That's the only logical conclusion that I can think of. The funny thing is, I honestly think that this whole plot hole could easily be shrunk by making it so that Sonic was the only one not captured. Think about it. Without Tails, he has no techno help. He also has nobody to help him in case he fucks up. He often relies on his friends. I know that Sonic has saved the day entirely by himself before, but at least we could use the excuse that this is bigger than him. Bigger than anything he's faced before, and that he'll need an army to overcome this, and he won't be able to do it alone. The created character's role could easily have been someone who helped him found the resistance movement. You know, the forces that's on the title of the fucking game. But, no. So, Sonic's in prison, and everyone else is fucking lazy. Seriously, nobody does anything in this game. They all just sit around all day on their phones doing fuck all for 6 months. All of them have probably got to level 50 of Angry Birds by this point, but nothing else has been accomplished. Anyway, this is where you come into it. You are called upon to come to the aid of heroes in their time of need. Your face will inspire revolutionaries for generations to come, and because of this, there's a great amount of pressure to make the perfect character. A face that will spell out hope for every anthropomorphic abomination on this planet.
Knuckles, what's the sit rep, Commander?
Happy to see you're all still alive. Eggman's forces have chewed through our defenses at Green Hill, and the resistance in the city is reporting that whatever it is that finished Sonic... Sorry, I'm still not used to saying that. Whatever it is has got them running in fear. All except for this brave kid who survived the battle and made it here in one piece. Meet our newest recruit.
Doesn't look like much.
Neither do you, Charmy, but I still managed to find a use for your pointy butt. Here, kid, take this. We're depending on you. Okay, let's get going, everybody. The world's not gonna save itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you're introduced and you finally get to play as your character, believe it or not. It's only like 3 levels in, but it feels like it takes forever. I understand playing as Sonic in the opening, I guess, even though the level before the scene where Sonic gets captured is completely unrelated to the scene where he gets captured, and that scene unfolds entirely in cutscene. Okay, this is going to be my first comparison to South Park, as it's an underlying problem with this game. Continuity. Okay, so Sonic has one of the worst continuities I've ever seen, ever. I mean, I still don't get how it fucking works. I don't know what games are canon and what aren't canon. Sonic Generations is canon to this game, but I have no idea what games are canon to Sonic Generations. It's implied that all of them are in some shape or form, but how does that even work? If Sonic 06 is canon to this, which I have no fucking idea one way or the other, but if it is, where the fuck do the humans live? Where does the city that Shadow the Hedgehog lived in, that was in Shadow the Hedgehog, belong? Or was that not canon to Sonic 06 or Sonic Forces? What, was that even the same city? Were those the same humans? Did humans and anthropomorphs coexist in different cities in either of those two games? There are also several things that I like that have piss poor continuity. Like Friday the 13th, for instance, and every other horror franchise ever, along with stuff like Ninja Turtles, where there are multiple adaptations and versions. But at least there, it is possible to work it out most of the time. Case in point, South Park Stick of Truth. Now I know that South Park isn't amazing at keeping a track of its own continuity. Kenny is the embodiment of how they just like to fuck with the audience on that front, but at least it still has some semblance of sense. Episodes' previous events are acknowledged, characters are where they're supposed to be as established, and I know that this is the same South Park that I saw in the early 2000s as a kid. Sonic, though, is a fucking mess. I don't know where to even begin. I don't even know where to begin. I don't understand, but the thing is, you aren't supposed to understand, because it's so poorly thought out. It's not a jumble mess because it's too complex for us. No, it's a jumble mess because nobody gave a fuck at any time. And so, they just left it a jumble mess rather than try to work on making a universe that actually works. Hell, why even bother to make a story that works? It'll either get rebooted or ignored in the next game anyway. Okay, so, turns out they're holding Sonic on the Death Egg. Yes, this is Sonic's B-Tech version of the Death Star, a giant Eggman head floating in space. The Death Egg. I'm sorry, but adding egg to anything instantly diminishes it, and it's the perfect embodiment of what this game is trying to do and why it fails so miserably. The death part of its name is the effort to make this darker, edgier, and more solemn than previous Sonic games, even though A, Shadow the Hedgehog was darker than this, and B, Sonic the Animated Series was even darker than that, where Sonic's uncle was turned into a cyborg and went feral before his very eyes.
Uncle Chuck, what's up? Uncle Chuck? Oh man!
It's alright, Sonic. We saved Mobius. That's the important thing.
We've gotta get you back to Knothole. Warp 7.
It's too late, Sonic.
Uncle Chuck? No way am I leaving you here!
Sonic, he's turned back.
You gotta come with me!
Sonic!
Uncle Chuck!
Come on, Sugar Hog!
Uncle Chuck!
Sonic, we have to leave him!
Sonic's voice is deeper and more adult in this one, and I get the impression that this is a new addition. I mean, I could be wrong, I haven't played these games in years, so feel free to correct me, but everyone in this seems toned down in comparison to other games. The egg part, however, completely fucks that up. There's no tension because every issue gets easily resolved. Nobody struggles to do anything or has to go through anything or even become anything. And in the end, the dark tone that this game sets up is completely diminished by itself. You know, it actually has just occurred to me, but I can think of a game that did this way better. Rayman 2. It has the same basic premise minus the created character. So yeah, it's the same premise basically. An evil man takes over the planet using robots and a bunch of woodland creatures have to stop him. The only difference is that Rayman 2 actually manages to have a dark opening, and though the problem is overcome pretty quickly, we get to see how close to death Rayman actually is at the beginning, and even when he breaks out of prison, it's just the beginning of a difficult journey. Here, breaking Sonic out of prison happens before level 5, which is a sixth of the way through the game. Yeah, no joke, this game is 30 levels long and the biggest obstacle is solved by level 5. That's just the beginning of the problems with that part of the story, but I'll have to talk about it as its own topic. So please be patient, my children. Another thing that Rayman 2 had going for it, that this game fails, is the villain. Razorbeard isn't the most well-rounded and brilliant villain ever, but he does the job. He's intimidating, creepy, and evil. He was only one official game's villain, and in a couple of non-canon spin-offs he was also an antagonist in those. And most importantly of all, he was actually a threat. Dr. Eggman is a terrible, pathetic excuse of a villain, and he only gets worse and more trivial with every game. Out of the 4 Sonic games that I've played from start to finish, he's the main antagonist of 3 of them, and a potential antagonist in 1 of them. Which, by the way, he's the antagonist in the worst possible endings of Shadow the Hedgehog, as it means you miss out on the happy ending, where Shadow shoots Sonic in the fucking face. The problem that I have with Eggman, other than the fact that him constantly being in the games makes him incredibly boring and trivial, is that he's idiotic beyond all comprehension. Every time Sonic gets the upper hand or outsmarts him, it's his own fucking fault for giving him that chance and projecting the possibility of escape. He's either blatantly stalling or speculatively fucking up by doing something overtly complicated and stupid instead of just shooting Sonic in the fucking face like any competent villain would. So his first plan is to capture Sonic and hold him prisoner until Sonic gets to see his entire world die along with his friends, and then he gets to blast him into outer space. This is a fucking stupid idea, but I'll get to that in a moment. Anyway, Sonic predictably escapes, and his next plan is to just go ahead and destroy the Earth anyway with his reality-destroying bomb. Now, rather than just do this, he decides to have a loud conversation about it in an open space, and even goes as far as to tell Team Sonic about his plan. Why tell them anything? You're just giving them the means to stop you. You dumb bald twat! At no point does he feel remotely threatening, because you know that he's gonna fail, and even if he succeeded, his plan is idiotic anyway. What's he going to even get from destroying the planet? At least Dr. Robotnik from the old cartoons, besides being a better villain in every other way, he at least wanted robot slaves out of the woodland creatures. But this dumb shit wants to destroy everything on the planet. What does he need to do? Like, what's stopping him from doing what he wants now? What's stopping him from building an empire? Do you know how much land there is out in the world? There's fucking loads that Sonic just runs through without even thinking about it. Why didn't he just build a big robot city there? Like, I don't understand. I honestly think his motivation is because evil. And if that's the case, this plan is retarded. What's the point in ruling over a planet that's just ash? Why does he need to rule a planet? What does he even need to do? If you compare him to, say, Baron Praxis from Jak 2, who wants to rule a city and needs people to be afraid of the monsters that live outside the city so that he can impose his authoritarian dictatorship on them, it's obvious which of these two games' stories was written over an afternoon whilst doing shots. Part of his plan is to make Sonic watch his friends die, but it wouldn't work because Sonic is the most self-absorbed, awful character I've encountered since Patroclus Alexander from Soul Calibur 5. In fact, he's just shy of reaching my top 5 biggest douchebags award list. Seeing his friends die, or suffer, or struggle, or whatever Eggman does to them, changes nothing for Sonic. He's too busy going on about how fast and great he is. Given that they're not in this game, I'm guessing Eggman dragged Big the Cat, Cream and Cheese down here, rapes Cream, whilst Reverse Flash forced Cheese up Big the Cat's fat arsehole. This could have happened for all I know. Sonic wouldn't react any differently regardless. Nothing fucking phases him, and yet the game has the fucking gall to give me a preachy message about how great it is to have friends and shit. This is a problem that's existed in other Sonic things, but it's worse than this one. It genuinely feels as if the developers made Sonic personally and want to convince everyone how cool he is. This would be fine if it weren't for the fact that this is a game about creating your own character. Can't my guy have the spotlight for 5 fucking minutes? Again, let's compare this to South Park. In this game, the created character has no lines, doesn't contribute anything to the plot until the final act, and his biggest, most important job is rescuing someone who manages to rescue themselves. In South Park, the protagonist is the most important character in the story, as the story revolves around them. They have special skills and abilities that only they can do, and established characters need them to accomplish their own goals and complete their own arcs, which is why your player character exists. On the other hand, Sonic Forces fails to even have your character show up half the time. Sometimes they're in the background, but rarely are they even acknowledged. They have no relationship with anyone else in this game, and don't serve any purpose to the story. They could be replaced with Shadow, Silver, Knuckles, or even fucking Big the Cat, and it wouldn't hurt the plot in the slightest. To me, this is idiotic. White Knight Chronicles did this as well, but here it's far worse than in that. People have been waiting years for this concept. Sonic Team. People have been making fan art Sonic recolors, writing shitty fanfictions, and all sorts of shit for decades, and this game was their chance to shine. I mean, come on, these guys didn't get the best role in life to begin with, and now you are shitting on them by having them irrelevant in their own plot, overshadowed by their own hero. How's Bloodshot the Hedgehog ever going to be cool if Sonic keeps stealing his glory? In South Park, they at least big the character up a bit. Sure, there is some deprecation and belittlement and insults thrown your way, but overall, your character is the centre of attention, for better or worse. You befriend and interact with everyone from the show, and it's overall great for fans because of this. Sonic Forces gives you nothing. Fan or not, you're just pushed to the back like one of the kids that hangs out with a super friend. I didn't buy this crap game to be sidelined by Charmy the fucking Bee of all people, and I'm sure that Sonic recolors and fans of Sonic didn't either. Rather than feeling welcome to its universe like in South Park, you're shunned and left very confused and out in the cold. I suppose if it was trying to do this, you know that it was doing it better than South Park games do. In the scenes where the player character's left out in South Park, you genuinely feel like you're getting the cold shoulder. Here, it's just Sonic Team fucking up, as usual. It's funny as well, as they set up a relationship between the created character and Reverse Flash, but even this doesn't work. They don't interact, and I don't even know what it's trying to convey with it. It's not explored, and the relationship doesn't develop or anything. Persona 5 does this a hell of a lot better. The protagonist meets the main villain of this game at the beginning of the game, and he's kind of the source of all the protagonist's problems. They flash back to this guy in between segments, and towards the end of the game, their relationship becomes more apparent. Here though, they saw each other once, and this makes them enemies? What is this, a James Blunt song? How does Infinite even remember you? You didn't do anything but run away. He made the same threat to you that he's made to literally everyone else that he meets. Oh, and he exists, by the way, Reverse Flash. Personally, I think he's a marginally better villain than Eggman. He, however, is just really bland, boring, and forgettable. He's basically every half-assed Final Fantasy villain ever made. He's even voiced by a Final Fantasy regular, which says everything to me. He just blusters this pseudo-villain crap that was written on the back of a fag packet, or on a bathroom wall somewhere, at a pub, and he has no motivation or arc or anything to make him remotely interesting. His powers are slightly interesting, but powers on their own aren't an interesting and defining character trait. If they aren't explored, they're meaningless. Which, by the way, they completely aren't explored, nothing's told about them. Sonic spends so much time sucking his own dick in this game. I know that hedgehogs can naturally curl up into balls, and in his shape that would easily allow him to put his penis into his mouth, but Jesus fuck man, that's not why you can do it. You're not supposed to just use it as an excuse to suck your own dick. So how does this get any worse? Well, they introduce a third character. Fake Sonic. Yeah, I call him Fake Sonic because he's nothing. He isn't young Sonic like I originally thought he is, and he's from another dimension, not from the past. His levels are the most pointless, and yet somehow they're the ones that are most well made. Though I wouldn't say they are particularly great, they're at least interesting, as in the shit that happens in them is interesting. Worlds that are upside down, worlds that are casinos, and worlds that require you to get out of water before you drown. Some of them peck head and have nothing in them that connects to the plot, unless you count the ridiculously contrived situation of Fake Sonic walking from one side of the room to the other, leveling an entire power plant as connectivity to the plot. But hey, one whole game of this and I wouldn't have been pissed off too badly. Sadly though, these are broken up with the modern Sonic sections. Some reviewers have said that Sonic goes too fast in these games, but in all honesty, I don't think that's it. I have 20/20 vision and would make a fantastic pilot, and even I find myself running off edges into enemies or committing suicide in some other stupid way. It's hard to explain, but it's like the controls lock up at times. Buttons don't respond when I hit them, sometimes it responds too late, and other times it's just god-awful level design that kills me. You know that Sonic games are fucked if you're having to carefully walk around areas to avoid falling. I never had this issue in Sonic Heroes, where you ran through levels as quick as you wanted, without any risk of falling, but this game's design is fucking horrendous. Check out this bit on the Death Egg. Whilst I'm riding a rail to a certain area, I jump off, or maybe even fly off, I can't even tell myself by watching the footage, and I can't remember, and then I managed to navigate my way further down the line, skipping a big chunk of the level just by not falling. Was I supposed to be able to do this? Or did I just cheat? Or break the game? I don't even know anymore. This wasn't even the only time that something like this happened to me either. This game isn't broken like Sonic 06, but it is poorly designed, and it's a classic trait of many Sonic games. In truth, this game isn't difficult, but in all honesty, I would have preferred this to be a piss-easy and fun game, rather than a game that's hard because it's not very well designed. At one point, I was having fun being a badass and just running, jumping and blasting through everything, whilst the music really built up, only to find myself jumping into an enemy and being knocked back. It's like the game built me up just to throw a curveball at me and knock me on my arse at the last second and make me do the entire segment again to pay for my hubris. How I was supposed to know this was going to happen is beyond me. I ended up doing this at least 3 times before realising. It wasn't a challenge, as I didn't fail to do it again once I knew what was happening, but after figuring this out, it ruined my flow, and my fun kinda died along with the original character. I will say that the game doesn't have a life system, but it's still not enough to make it any easier or more fun. I definitely prefer South Park's difficulty. Aside from one boss battle in Fractured Butthole, which I really hated and felt that it soured my overall opinion of the game has a decent enough difficulty curve, where it's challenging but isn't frustrating. Sonic on the other hand fails to be challenging, but can often be frustrating. Some areas are pedantic as fuck, and most levels are over with 2 or 3 minutes in, and yet none of it, aside from a classic Sonic segment, is what I'd call fun. The boss battles are a piss take, like the final boss battle where the boss just destroys the ground under your feet, and if you don't know where that's going to happen and don't have the reflexes of fucking Reverse Flash, then you just fall and die. Again, I get that they're trying to make this challenging, but normally in a good boss fight, you establish what a boss can do, or give the player a bit of time to adjust to the environmental change. Changing the rules like this and killing the player in one hit is just cheap, and it's doubly cheap that it sends you back to the beginning of the fucking fight, back to the boss's first phase. Basically, this game fails to be fun, and comes across as tedious more than anything. I was actually somewhat relieved when this game was only 30 levels long, as it felt like an eternity on its own, and I'm just glad that I didn't have to do much pissing about on this one. Honestly, the only thing that gives this game any length is the fake Sonic stages, and even they aren't great. One of them has a bonus area which is a complete and utter bastard to escape from, and others are a little weird to navigate. But they're the closest that this game comes to actually being good, which is sad because none of it should be there at all. Fake Sonic doesn't work as a recurring character, especially when he shows up for no frigging reason. Characters interacting with their younger selves is a common trope in various types of media, but usually it's done with a purpose in mind. For example, a recent episode of Doctor Who actually had the 12th Doctor meet his first incarnation. This allowed him to see how much he'd grown and changed as a person. In comparison, his old self was sexist and stubborn and didn't seem to care about human lives in the same way that he did. Nor did he care about the lives of his own companions as much as the 12th Doctor. It made for a good episode because he actually was part of the plot and served a purpose, as it allowed a young Doctor to see what he would become if he regenerated. And yes, I'm aware that the 50th anniversary special did that as well, but shh! The point being that fake Sonic served a purpose in Generations, but here, he's just more confusion to an already fucked up mess of a plot. He doesn't need to be here, because plenty of other characters can do what he does. It makes me wonder why so many friend characters exist if none of them actually do anything. But then I realised that they can't do anything, because someone else comes along and steals their jobs the second that they try.
They took our job! They took our job! They took your job! They took our job! They took your job! They took your job! Your job!
Oh, speaking of the topic of stealing jobs, you know whose job really needs stealing? The people who make the fucking music. And the ones who sing these songs. Jesus fucking Christ, the music is painful. I know that the Nelsons were... Well, let's not beat around the bush, they were fucking dreadful. But these guys make the Nelsons look like the fucking Beatles. The music to this game is so wank that I had to mute the TV during the credits. And the only time I've ever had to do that is with Dragon Age Oranges, where I had to mute the 30 Seconds to Mars music at the end of that game, which is equally fucking terrible, by the way. Yeah, we're on the fucking level of 30 levels to shit. Oh wait, no, we're already there. That's how bad we are. To be honest, my biggest gripe overall, despite everything negative about this game, it's that I don't hate it. I can't hate it. To hate it is to feel something for it. And that's where this game failed in all aspects. I've played several Sonic games, and Sonic was quite a big part of my childhood. At least for a year or two, and over the years I grew a little detached from the franchise. The thing is though, even though I loved these characters in this universe as a kid, I care nothing for it now. The rebooting and reformatting has just completely sucked the soul out of it. Compared to Toy Story, where I grew up with all 3 films and still love them all, it definitely falls short. When Toy Story 3 came out, I was old as Andy, which probably made me its target market, but that scene with the incinerator still shook me to the core. The idea that these beloved characters were in a situation like that awoke my inner child, and I felt my hand slip into his as the characters did the same. It's become a semi-tradition of my family to hold hands during that scene, even though we know what's coming. Nobody will ever do that for Sonic. Trying to make a serious story on any level out of Sonic is just a terrible idea at this point. Sonic Team can't write stories or characters or even make good games. So why do they think we'll give a single fuck about Sonic's world being destroyed? It just boggles the mind. We can't care about a world that we don't understand on any level. We can't invest in a world where nobody gives a single ounce of thought to the world's creation. This is the final aspect where South Park just kicks this game's ass. The world building the TV show has used over the last 20 years, it's existed to build a fantastic world for the player to explore in that game. Whereas Sonic has just spent the last 30 fucking years building up and tearing down the same world again and again. Nothing is ever learned or gained, and nothing has ever had room to grow or get comfortable. To conclude, I couldn't recommend this to anyone. You could miss this and not even notice. However, I wouldn't say don't buy this or anything that drastic. It's not even that level of bad. It's just so bland, so nothing, that I feel nothing for it. It'll just be another forgotten reboot which will be swept under the rug along with Sonic Boom and Sonic and the Black Knight. Well, you know, unless Sonic Team view my video and decide to make some changes and improvements on my criticism. They won't just jump ship and let the world sink as well, but they'll use its strengths and foundations and use this game to make an even better game next time. You know, like how Valve made Left 4 Dead 2 after Left 4 Dead, and how Telltale Games really came around in the early 2010s. This is something average that with enough encouragement could blossom into something beautiful. I'm sorry. No, fuck that. That's never gonna happen.
You belong among the wildflowers. You belong somewhere close to me, far away from the trouble and worry. You belong somewhere you feel. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong somewhere close to me, far away from the trouble and worry. You
battle is done, and our resistance has come to a conclusion, but we'll be friends forever.
Oh, no way, man. You guys are totally lame. I'm getting the fuck out of here.